welcome back to day 3 of 18 Days Underground. We are going to read a story called Lost at Sea today, and when I'm finished reading, I want you to summarize what I read in your Canvas page. So, Lost at Sea. Aldi Novel Alderjong's job was supposed to be dangerous. The worst thing about it was that Aldi spent hours alone with nothing to do. Things could get pretty boring. The 18-year-old lived in a fishing hut called Rompong. The Rompong sat on a wooden platform and floated in the Pacific Ocean, more than 75 miles away from his home in Indonesia. Aldi's main job was to light lamps on a hut at night and to attract fish into traps underneath the platform. Aldi was supposed to live in the hut for 6 months. Once a week, a ship brought supplies to him. Otherwise, he was alone in the middle of the ocean. Soon he would be more alone than he could have ever dreamed. On the morning of July 14 of 2018, high winds battered the hut. Aldi stayed safely inside under the protection of the hut's thatched roof during the storm. The Rongpong had been through storms before, so the teenager wasn't too worried that anything would happen. But he was wrong. About 7 o'clock that morning, Aldi felt a sharp tug on the bottom of the Rompong. A sudden gust of wind had snapped the rope that had anchored the hut to the sea floor. Suddenly, the Rompong was moving. Aldi was helpless to stop the hut as it floated away on the rising ocean waves. In time, the storm passed and the winds died down. But Aldi was in big trouble. Far from land and with no ships in sight, he was alone in the middle of nowhere. Aldi grabbed a radio and kept it in the hut in case of trouble. He called his friends who were working on other Rongpongs. "Phone the boss," he told them. "My anchor has snapped." There was no answer. Perhaps he was too far out to sea for anyone to pick up the signal. At first, Aldi wasn't too worried. The same thing actually had happened to him twice before, and each time people from the company he worked for had found him within a few days. "On the first day I was okay," Aldi said later. "I wasn't stressed or panicking. I knew they would send a boat, but I was worried it would have to turn back because the winds and the waves were too strong." Meanwhile, Aldi tried to look on the bright side. He did have shelter, food, water, and cooking gas. He was sure someone would come looking for him soon. To pass time, Aldi sang songs, made a calendar to mark off the days, and he read from his Bible. He kept looking for boats on the horizon. As the days passed, Aldi began to get scared. His supply of food was soon gone, even though he rationed it to last as long as possible. He did catch fish from the ocean and cook them on the small stove in the hut. Running out of water was a bigger problem. Aldi's supply of fresh water was used up. Rainstorms provided some fresh water for him, but without rain, Aldi had no fresh water. It was cruel to look out over the ocean and see nothing but water, but he could drink none of it. Aldi knew that drinking the salty ocean water would make him sick and would even kill him, but he had to think of something. Aldi got an idea. Maybe he could strain the salt out of the ocean water. Aldi pulled up his t-shirt, which had gotten wet from the sea, and he squeezed out a few drops of water and sucked them into his mouth. The water wasn't too salty. Perhaps Aldi had found a way to make fresh water out of salt water. The small victory cheered him up. But the teenager soon faced another problem. He was now out of cooking gas. How could he cook his food? Aldi did the only thing he could think of. He burned the Rompong's wooden fences to build a fire. Once again, Aldi's cleverness saved the day and made him feel hopeful. More days passed, then weeks. Aldi did not know what to think. Surely people were looking for him. He thought about his family. Did they miss him? Did they wonder what happened to him? Maybe everyone thought he had drowned and they had called off the search. "The hardest thing was the thought that I would never see my parents again," he said, "that I would never see my island again and never make it home alive. Aldi tried not to think these dark thoughts, but it was hard not to panic as time went on and on. Alone on his floating hut, he cried tears of sadness and tears of fear. The ocean waves carried Aldi farther east every day. Soon the young man had no idea where he was. There was nothing to see but water in every direction. Then one day Aldi saw a ship on the horizon, and his hopes soared. Surely he would be rescued. He jumped up and down on the deck of the rompong, and he waved his arms and yelled. Then he realized the awful truth. The huge ship was too far away to see him. Desperate to make contact, Aldi grabbed his radio and tried to make contact with the ship. To his delight, the captain answered. The captain promised to come back and get Aldi after the crew finished their day's work. Aldi was thrilled. But hours passed with no sign of the ship returning. Aldi realized that they were not coming back, and he was still alone. Another ship will come, Aldi told himself. Surely the next ship will see me. Aldi was right. Another ship did come past. In fact, more than 10 ships came within sight. Each time Aldi tried to call them on his radio while he waved frantically for help. And each time the huge freighters and tankers sailed right by him. The teenager knew he was nothing but a speck on the ocean to them. Even if they sailed right by, they could not see him floating alone in this vast ocean. It was August 31. Aldi had been at sea for 48 days. He had run out of wood to burn, so he had no way to cook the fish he caught. Aldi had no choice but to eat the fish raw. Aldi didn't know it, but the ocean currents had carried him hundreds of miles until he was near the island of Guam, and his bad luck was about to change. Once again, Aldi saw a ship sailing towards him. It was a cargo ship from Panama, halfway around the world, called the MV Arpeggio. As he had so many times before, Aldi turned on his radio. This time he was able to find the same frequency the Arpeggio was using. Help! 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 Aldi called. He stood on the deck and waved a towel at the ship, which seemed so far away. Would anyone even hear or see him? Suddenly a voice spoke back to him. It was the ship's chief mate, Emmanuel Serrano. Aldi did not understand the words Serrano said to him, but his heart leaped with hope. Someone knew that he was alive. On board the Arpeggio, Serrano hurried to find the ship's captain, Santillan. He told Santillan about the distress call and the tiny hut floating at sea. Immediately, Santillan ordered the huge ship to change course. The cargo ship was about to become a rescue ship. Aldi rejoiced as he saw the ship coming closer and closer. Then he got scared. The ship is so big, and his rompong was so tiny. What if the Arpeggio hit him by accident? Or what if it could not send any help down to the small raft? Would Aldi be lost at sea once again? All he could do was hold his breath, hope, and pray. Aldi was right to worry. The giant cargo ship just couldn't pull up to the rompong. At first it couldn't even get close enough to Aldi to rescue him. It took 4 tries before the Arpeggio could come near the rompong without creating huge waves that could have swamped the hut. Finally, Captain Santillan moved his ship as close as he could. Crew members threw a life preserver into the water, and Aldi grabbed it and kicked his way through the water to the side of the cargo ship. But his ordeal was not over yet. Crew members lowered a wooden ladder over the side of the ship. Aldi managed to grab hold of the bottom rungs, but as he began a terrifying climb up the side of the huge ship, the ladder twisted and turned under his weight. A few times he got stuck between the ladder and the side of the ship, and he had to stop and rest many times. At last he climbed his way close enough to the top. Crew members grabbed him and pulled him to safety. For a few minutes Aldi did not have the strength to do anything besides sit on the deck and catch his breath. Crew members wrapped him in blankets and gave him water to drink. Someone brought him a plate full of bread. Crew members tried to speak to Aldi, but they could not understand one another's language. They had to communicate through gestures and hand signals. Amazingly, after about 5 minutes, Aldi stood up. He shook hands with the crew member and smiled. Someone pulled up Google Translate on his computer. Using that technology, Aldi was able to tell his story to the astonished crew. Aldi's journey was not over yet, however. Captain Santillan spoke to officials over the radio. His new passenger had no passport, no identification, nothing but the clothes on his back. Because the cargo ship had been headed to Japan, officials told Santillan to continue to that country. Aldi's paperwork would be taken care of upon arrival. On September 6th, Aldi and his new friends arrived in Japan. From there, he traveled to Tokyo, where he got on an airplane. Soon afterwards, he landed back in Indonesia. Aldi was finally home. On September 9, Aldi was reunited with his family. He was thrilled to be back home and see his relatives, and he made all of them and himself a promise. From now on, he was staying on dry land. I hope you enjoyed Lost at Sea. Take just a couple minutes and summarize what you heard in your Canvas page. See you back later.